the Christian tradition. My own work in apologetics has taken the C.S. Lewis kind of mere Christianity approach. I'll be using generally that in this debate. By way of background,
I mean, that's going to be tough because it's only the Christian sect of Zionism, the evangelists that believe in, you know, supporting Israel. I mean, the other Christian faiths, I mean, the other Christian denominations are kind of against it, especially the Catholics, especially them, considering the history.
I'm from a very old Catholic family in India. It goes back about 400 years. My grandfather's brother was the Cardinal of Pakistan. So I'm deeply rooted in the Catholic tradition, the Catholic intellectual tradition. I've studied it, I've written a lot about it, and I've debated it against generally leading atheists, people like Christopher Hitchens and others. Now, Israel is not my topic. And by that, I mean in a career spanning 35 years, I haven't written about it. I barely mentioned it. I'm not known as a Zionist. I don't identify with Zionism, which was a secular socialist movement of the 19th century. I have no particular stake in Israel as a country. I'm America first all the way. And so keep those things in mind as we have this debate. If you're looking...
I mean, yeah, low-key, the original Zionists were honestly, like, what? Secular terrorists.
Looking for me to sort of channel Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin, that's really not going to be happening here. I'm not a professional Israel advocate in any sense of the term. I discovered Israel really 2 or 3 years ago when I visited for the first time. And I found it interesting in 2 ways. The first one was simply that we live at a time when cities have become really homogenized. These days, you know, there's no point going to Zurich and Copenhagen. It's all kind of one thing. Israel's not like that. In Israel, you're very conscious that you're in the land of the Bible. That is a very important feeling for Christians. You get the sense that this is your spiritual homeland. And by spiritual homeland, what I mean is that our faith is not some kind of abstraction that is delivered in the sky. It could have been. God could have put the 10 Commandments. He could have, put it on the moon. But he didn't do that. Our Bible, our history, our Christianity is historical. It's rooted in real people and real events and real places. It took place somewhere in the world. And that somewhere happens to be Israel. That's worth remembering and worth noting. I also discovered in the course of now 4 visits to Israel, the thing that really interests me, and that is biblical archaeology. And biblical archaeology has the definitive effect of authenticating and corroborating the people and events in the Bible. We can go into it a little bit later. I will give you the most shocking examples of this. But it is a massive refutation of the skepticism and atheism of the 19th century, which basically said that the Bible was written hundreds of years later and most of it was kind of made up. Biblical archaeology shows us that the Bible is talking about real people and true events. You can debate the miracles, you can debate the theology, but that these things are real, these people are real, the events are real, has been authenticated down to the most excruciating detail. That's very important because it also happens to establish the presence of the Jews in their ancestral homeland. Okay. And in a way, to me, the fundamental question that we're discussing today, when I say morally obligated, what I really mean is, what's the right thing to do? Now, saying what the right thing to do doesn't solve the problem of should we give money to Israel or how much money should we give to Israel? No. Supporting Israel here basically means having a certain recognition of a kind of spiritual and historical kinship or line of continuity established, by the way, in the Bible. Okay. And don't think of the Old Testament.
Okay, so the premise pretty much is that we have a religious duty to what? Help establish the Jewish state of Israel. That was pretty much taken by violence. I don't know if God wants that. I don't know about that one.
The Testament is Jewish. The New Testament is just as Jewish as the Old. Both are describing Jewish.
Nah, bro. Andrew's face, though, when he said that, the look up.
The Testament is just as Jewish as the Old. Both are describing Jewish communities and Christianity came right out of that. In fact, the first Christians were Jews. They were Jews who followed the Messiah. I think historically we could say with great accuracy they were the very first Judeo-Christians. The apostles.
All right, well, why help establish a state full of, Jews, a religion that don't believe in Jesus? Like, what sense does that make? I mean, it don't really make too much sense, Dinesh, especially if you're tackling it from the Christian lens here.
Were Judeo-Christians. Now, to me, the core of this question is whose land is it?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I was just getting warned. This is my introduction, guys. All right. Let me just put it this way. There are three ways to get a country. First, you were there first. That's the ancestral claim. Number two, you got the country by some kind of negotiation or treaty. Or number three, you got the land because you captured it. Every single country on the map in the world now has gotten its claim based on one of these three ways.
Yeah.
The argument I'm going to make is that Israel succeeds on all three ways.
Yo.
It checks all the boxes. Even America doesn't. The American Indians were here first. We might have.
But to sit there and say that, I want to make a religious claim while also making one of violence as well. Like, you're pretty much admitting that they just came there, stole their land through violence, and this is supposed to be biblically correct. And y'all wonder why people, people like this low-key do give religion a bad name. Give Christianity a bad name. If you're sitting there saying, oh, no, we support the apartheid state of Israel. No, we support the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. It's religiously authorized. I don't know about that.
Conquered them, taken the land from them. So we got it by conquest. They got it by original inhabitancy. And there's a little bit of a argument over here. But I'm going to argue that the Jews were there. It's their land. Number two, they got it by treaty. It was given to them by the United Nations. They accepted it. The Palestinians rejected it. And three, they got it by not just by conquest. They fought 3 defensive wars against massive coalitions of Islamic forces
Y'all took their
that
land.
are into essentially global colonization. The Muslims
it's like, I know we took their land through force for our religious values, but how dare them fight back those cursed Islamist terrorists? It's like, what? But you what do you think was going to happen? You took their land.
the real colonizers. And so whichever box you choose, Israel succeeds. And therefore, supporting Israel isn't just sort of the biblical thing to do, it's the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've got the timer ready for you, Andrew, on your first word. Oh, that's right. If you're able to.
Got to set the mood. First of all, big round of applause for Dinesh real quick. Great opening. But that's not going to save him. I want for everybody to remember that the topic of this debate is if Christians have a moral obligation to support Jews in Israel. He didn't give us one. It is obvious to me that since the answer is clearly no, that Dinesh likely gave no reason, which means I predicted you wouldn't give us one. I will begin by expressing to you, the audience, that when discussing normative claims, or in this case, moral claims, you need to demonstrate why the moral obligation is there. Dinesh's view comes down to a whole bunch of really stupid propositions that actually make no sense. Note, I'm not calling Dinesh stupid. He's far from it. But even intelligent people can believe stupid propositions and often do. Logical proposition 1, Christians need to support a Jewish state of Israel because their ethics and Christian ethics overlap. This is something which Dinesh has said multiple times. The reason this is a stupid proposition is because the modern state of Israel is a secular state. This state supports abortion, and most of the public supports it. They have pregnancy termination boards, which grant 99% of applications abortions up to 24 weeks and beyond. They support gay marriage, and while not marrying gays themselves, as there is no civil marriage authority, they recognize all out-of-country gay marriages as valid, and all gay cohabitation has identical social and financial rights. Let that sink in. They are extremely pro-transgender, and their public healthcare system provides generously for trans surgery and voice mod training.
Yo,
Sorry about that. 1 second here. According to their own polling, the Israeli Institute for Gender and LGBTQ Studies has supported 75% or more for homosexual acceptance, advocacy, and gender care, which includes 90% from secular Jews and even over 50% from the...
now it's kind of funny though, because he is making a really good point. It's like, yo, okay, this is supposed to be a state that Christians support, but they're really secular. But then this is where I would backtrack it on Andrew. It's like, yeah, but here's the thing though. Christians like to sit here and talk about their disagreements of, you know, gays until they're debating a Muslim. And they're talking about, well, we love our gays. We don't throw them off roofs. It's like, all right, what is it? Do you support gays or not?
Religious Orthodox Jews. Now I can keep going. Women in the military, IVF programs, national health care, prostitution, pornography. These are libtards, essentially, who live in Israel that Dinesh wants us to support. A whole nation of them. Christian ethics here in the USA determines that we resist these things in our own nations. Why would we support other nations which codify these things as law any more than we would Sharia law? I don't want millions upon millions or billions of my dollars to be used to support a system which allows for these forms of degeneracy when we are busy combating them in our own backyard. Why would Christians support that? Now, Dinesh can argue the USA is plagued with similar problems, and that's true. And Christians here oppose our own governmental national apparatus and strongly attempt to legislate against these forms of policy. We do the opposite of funding it, except through force of tax. Proposition 2, Dinesh believes that the Christians have a stake in Israel because it's the holiest of holies, and the holiest Christian sites are there. I grant this is true, but that doesn't give us much reason to keep the population there Jewish. If Christians in the West truly want access to the holy sites, then why not just demand Israel, who is our protectorate, take a certain amount of Christians per year? I think 100,000 or more should do the trick. The USA has no cap on Jews immigrating here. Why not just demand they allow Christian immigration with no cap there, or we cut off all military funding and support, and that's that. Then we get the holy sites. He argues that Israelis guard these things better than Muslims. I can see that's true, but I'm certain millions of Christian immigrants could protect them just fine. Not sure why there needs to be a Jewish state to do this, or why we have a moral obligation to keep it Jewish at all. Proposition 3, Dinesh often cites the biblical principle of those who bless Israel will be blessed. That's Genesis 12:3. Does a modern state of Israel seem very blessed to you? If you took every Jew in Israel and put them in Germany in the year 2026, they would be safer than they are in Israel. How's that for irony? Is God blessing their abortions or homosexuality and prostitution advocacy, the rejection of the Messiah? Doesn't seem like it to me. If that's what a God-blessed nation looks like, then I would be very wary of the blessings of that God, because he sure seems like he isn't very fond of them at the moment. Proposition 4, do Christians have an obligation to support religious Jews naming a Messiah, considering that that Messiah figure will certainly be false and Antichrist? This is obviously no. Don't know about Dinesh over here, but the proposition of naming a false Messiah and Christians supporting that by funding the religious, more conservative section of Jewish population claiming its morals seems insane to me. Proposition 5, are secular Jews blessed, or non-religious Jews blessed by the same Genesis passage? In other words, if I bless atheist Jews and all their liberal policies, will I in turn be blessed with magic Jew blood? Do I need to fight and die on their behalf for this blessing? Is it just a mind state, like I just kind of cheer them on? Does it require action on my part? What are my actual obligations here as a Christian? What's the normative framework to receive said blessing from my support of atheist Jews? I say the opposite.
And money.
As a Christian, it's my duty to resist and oppose the radical atheist and secular Jewish agenda of Israel. Until they conform to my ethical model, I would like and would do, in all cases, I would demand this of every nation, pull all financial and military support and deal with them only as a limited capacity as they could be dealt with. I am not in the business of funding abortion, homosexuality, prostitution, female empowerment. Christians must resist these propositions and demand, if Israel wants our aid, they need to conform to the standards and normative ethics of the very Christians they endlessly demand help from.
Fair.
To clarify a few terms, when you're making a normative claim, Dinesh, when you're making a ought claim, you need to tell us why Christians ought to support this nation. So far, you have not done that.
He literally just said it's biblical.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for those openings. So for the open dialogue, I have the timer set. This will be 80 minutes, and we're going to move the speakers just a little closer. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Excellent work. And then, Sean, if you can give us a thumbs up, if you can just squeeze up. You want them straight?
All right.
For 80 minutes for open dialogue. And of course, as usual, let this be as organic as you guys would like it to be. I'll just jump in if it gets really crazy. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Do you want me to go first, just to get us going?
It's your claim.
Okay. Would you agree that the New Testament not only follows the Old, but incorporates the Old? In other words, to put it differently, that Christianity is the only religion that takes the scriptures of another religion and incorporates it wholesale into its own Bible. True or false?
That's false.
That's false. So you would prefer to see the Old Testament removed from the Bible?
No. No, it's on I have a different worldview than you do. I see these things as a continuity, whereas you see them as a multitude of covenants. Is that correct?
No, I didn't say that. I started out with the physical Bible. When I look at my Bible, it's about 800 pages long.
Okay.
About 2/3 of it is the Old Testament, and the Old Testament is in the Christian Bible.
That's correct.
Right? The Christians didn't say it's an historical document that we should read in conjunction with our scriptures. It is included in the Christian scriptures. I asked you true or false, and you truly said false, which to me is deeply heretical because it implies that you're saying that the Old Testament does not belong in the Bible.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. So
What are you saying?
to clarify, I'm just saying that I would agree that these things are on a continuity, right? And maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, but now that we have that clarified, I think that these are on a continuity rather than covenantal.
All right. So they're in a continuity. Would you agree that the Old Testament is no less inspired than the New? In other words, it is just as sacred. It's sacred scripture, no less than the New, and on the same footing as the New. You agree?
Sure.
Okay. And you agree that the foundations of Christianity are anchored in the Old Testament, by which I mean that Christianity would be inconceivable without Genesis, the account of creation, the Exodus, the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, it would be totally incoherent.
The prophets. You agree?
Yeah, it'd be totally
You
incoherent.
agree that not only is that Jewish scriptures, but it is no less the Christian scriptures.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And do you agree further that when the Pilgrims and then later the American founders in America saw themselves as building a civilization anchored on Athens and Jerusalem, when they spoke about Jerusalem, they were referring to Christianity, the Old Testament, and the New? True or false?
I would say that that's true.
That is true. And therefore, America itself, our own country, is based on these two foundations, including the foundation of Jerusalem. If somehow the foundation of Jerusalem, historically, morally, ethically, were to be kicked out, we would be essentially cutting off our own feet. True or false?
Well, just can I ask a clarifying question? So when you say if Jerusalem is kicked out from under our feet, what are you referencing?
I'm referring to the continuous tradition, as you described it, that begins with not just Genesis and Noah and Adam, but then continues with Abraham.
Yeah, you
and
need to have the Old
David.
Testament for there to be a continuity, yes.
Right. And so Jerusalem refers to the whole biblical narrative that begins about 2000 BC with Abraham and continues to the Acts of the Apostles, which is about 60 or 70 AD. That whole story is Jerusalem.
Okay.
And I'm saying that that is a core foundation of our civilization. And
So what?
well, what it means is that that as a country, we recognize that we have moral, philosophical, and historical continuities with certain countries. And I would mention two. Great
So
Britain.
overlapping ethics.
Great Britain, because a lot of the ideas, not only were a lot of the founders coming from Great Britain, but we have had a special relationship with Great Britain that's now extended for many, many years. And it's based on the idea that we've got something in common with these people, even more so than with, say, the Germans or the Norwegians. And therefore, if there's an international crisis, the United States will team up right away with Great Britain as its European sort of, what do you call it, protectorate, and then try to get Great Britain to win over the other European countries. In other words, this special relationship.
So what?
Okay.
Where do we get to the moral obligation here, Dinesh? Great. We've established, hey, we have a the most special relationship ever with England because our ancestors come from England and France.
Right.
I'll happen to note very quickly, the top white demographic inside the United States is German, not English. Just want to point that out.
Fair enough.
Very, very far removed from what it was initially at our foundation. Where do we ever get to the moral obligation?
Okay, so first of all, let me address your German point, because there is a key difference between immigrants and settlers. The British built the country. The Germans came to a good country that the British built. So a settler is the guy who makes the country, makes the system. The immigrant is the guy who moves because he believes it's a really good club that he wants to join. So it doesn't matter how many immigrants have come later. The building of America was done by the settlers. Now, here's my point. With countries as with people, we have a certain, if you're a conservative, you have a certain respect for your own patrimony. It's yours. It's your lineage.
Blood and
it's
soil?
kind of like saying,
wait, are you making a blood and soil? I thought you rejected blood and soil.
I'm making an historical, immoral, and an
didn't you write a
intellectual
book
argument.
where you rejected the entirety of blood and soil? And that's the argument you're making here. Blood and soil.
I'm simply
Do
saying.
we have a super special relationship with other white people because they're white, Dinesh?
No, because those white people in other parts of the world had nothing to do with America.
Then
But
what the hell are you talking about, dude?
I'm talking about the fact that the British did. I'm talking about that the fact that the Bible is situated in that country and no other. It's not as
what?
So as Christians, this is something that should be important to us. It's evidently not important to you.
Look, let's break a couple things down. Absolutely. It's important.
Okay.
Great. Can we get to the moral op part?
Okay. All right. So now let's turn to the people who live in Israel. Do you agree that the people who live in Israel are Jews?
Yes. Mystery solved.
Okay. And all right. And do you also agree that they are directly in the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? In other words, they come in a sort of historical, religious, and ancestral line from the old Jews. In other words, what I'm saying is...
You mean that particular tribe coming off the 12 tribes that can be traced back?
I'm simply saying that there's a line of continuity in the same way that there's a line of continuity.
I agree. Do you agree that that's the case with Palestinians as well? They come from the same?
No. Let's take, for example,
even though
Gaza.
The ancestral DNA points this out.
No, it doesn't. Let's look at Gaza, for example, which is the heart of our debate. Gaza.
It's definitely not the heart of our debate.
Well, I mean the Palestinian debate. The Palestinian debate right now is not about the West Bank. It's about Gaza. That's where
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that historically, the people who lived in Gaza are not Palestinians. It is a fakery of the name through history that we call them Palestinians. The people who lived in Gaza were the Philistines. The Philistines were Europeans. They came from Greece. They came from Cyprus. This is archaeologically definitively established.
Are they more closely related than like Ashkenazi Jews are to the historic people of Israel?
The Philistines have vanished off the pages of history.
That's not the question that I asked you.
What is your question?
Mike, the question that I asked you is, would it be the case that the modern Palestinian people would have more ancestry in common with the Jews who currently live in Israel than an Ashkenazi Jew would?
Yeah,
this is a little bit debatable because some of the people who are from that region,
it's a little bit debatable.
No,
huh?
well, here's what I'm saying. If you're making it sound like it is 100% of a genetic argument.
Can you answer the question I asked you without obfuscation? Is it the case or not that Ashkenazi Jews generally have less shared ancestry than Palestinians do with the current Jewish population of Israel?
And
because they're people of that land, so they're gonna have more genetic ties to the original people that were there. They are Semites.
Is that in fact the case? No, they don't have as much shared ancestry as the Palestinians do, who currently live inside of Gaza, with the Jews who currently live in Israel. Isn't it true Ashkenazis don't have as much ancestry?
Yeah, but Judaism, hold on. Judaism is a combination. You're acting as if Judaism is purely a function of genetics. Judaism is a function of genetics plus history plus religious devotion. So
Dinesh,
that's what makes.
You were making that argument because you say you were making it an argument based on continuity.
If Jews are
but if you say
out,
the continuity gets broken, the second it is that we have Ashkenazi Jews who still have the right of return to Israel, though it is the case that they are now outside of that continuity, Dinesh. Now outside of that people group, Dinesh?
Yeah, and let's look at why they're outside. The Jews are forcibly ejected from their homeland. They scatter all over the world. Unsurprisingly, they settle in London, they settle in Europe, they settle in Africa, they settle in Asia, but they never relinquish their claim to the land. If they had said, all right, we're out of here, you could then say, all right, other people can wander in, can claim it's theirs. The Jews never gave it up. They were thrown out. Of course, when they settled elsewhere,
and what
there was some. Hold on,
okay.
There was some intermarriage. There was some imports to Judaism by people who converted it.
He went against one of his own criterias. Was that, you know, if you take the land, it's yours, right? If you do it by conquest, it's yours. So by your logic, I mean, once they kicked you out, it was no longer your land. So you can't sit there and say, no, it was still our land, even though we got kicked out. When one of your criterias was that, oh no, Jews can kick people out and it be their land and it's biblically protected. It's like, come on now, be consistent.
And some people converted out, but the Jewish community.
Oh, and shout out to my man, some guy on YouTube. He sent a happy poo for 10 jewels.
As a tribe and as a community, remained solidly intact through the centuries. I mean, just read.
Wait, this is, hang on.
You're making
a continuity argument, then breaking continuity. You're making a blood and soil argument, then breaking the idea of blood and soil. You mentioned at the beginning the right of conquest, which is your third criteria. Then you say the Jews got thrown out of Israel, which means somebody else had conquest. That's how they got the land, right?
That's right.
So that's a legitimate way to get the land, right?
That's right. And it was legitimate to take it back by the Crusades. So using the conquest ethic, I agree. The Ottomans captured the land and ruled it for a long time. The Ottomans lost World War II. And so by the same ethic of conquest, they were displaced and it became part of the British mandate. And then the UN basically proposed a partition for the, now the point is this.
I'm willing to agree to these facts.
Yeah, with any.
I'm not sure how we get to the ought though. When do we get to the ought?
Well, when we say we get to the ought, as Christians, we're trying to do what's right. We're trying to support the people who are on the right side of the issue. And you seem to be saying...
Hang on. When you say Christians, they have to support what's right.
Yeah.
How do Christians know what's right?
Well, okay. Well, in looking at what's right, we look at historical arguments, moral arguments,
Christian ethics,
spiritual continuity, shared moral principles. We also look at the fact that America is a force for good or on the good side in the world, and therefore there are bad guys trying to do us in, and their allies are going to be people that we oppose.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with you in a secular sense that those can be reasons.
Right. But secular reasons.
But you're a Christian. We're talking about whether or not Christians have a moral ought.
Well, Christians are also
specific moral ought a Christian has based on Christian ethics, our paradigm, our worldview, not the secular lens, not the secular view, the Christian view. Why do we have to support a Jewish state that could name Antichrist? Why?
Because, first of all, you can't make up your mind if it's a Jewish state or a secular state. You alternate both based on convenience.
Jewish,
in fact, you alternate it within the same
Jewish.
sentence.
Hang on, ethnic, don't equivocate. This is pure equivocation. Do you agree with me that there's ethnic Jews and then there are religious Jews?
I agree with that.
Then don't equivocate and say, you can't figure out if it's a Jewish state or a secular state, because Dinesh, it can be a secular Jewish state, can't it?
Israel was
Can it be a secular Jewish state, Dinesh?
Can
it be a secular Jewish state, Dinesh?
Israel.
Can it be a secular Jewish state?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, but
took a while to get there.
I've never denied it's a secular Jewish state.
You just got done lecturing me about how I called it a Jewish state, then a secular state.
Right,
like
because
that was a
I think
contradiction.
on the one hand, I think you're trying to appeal to anti-Jewish sentiment. And for that,
anti-Semite.
For that, you need the Jewish label. If Israel was truly a secular state, a lot of your antagonism would be diminished. I noticed, for example, you don't have the same hostility to Great Britain, right? Why not? They're a secular state. but they don't have the Jewish label, so you don't get excited. What I'm getting at here is
hang on. You're saying that
I'm saying that.
Can you explain to me just real quick?
Yeah.
Does England, by chance, is there a possibility that they're going to name Antichrist in my lifetime, Dinesh?
What do you mean by name Antichrist? What are you talking about?
I'm not talking about naming the Antichrist, but if Jews get together inside of Israel and they name a Messiah, is that going to be Jesus Christ?
Israel is not going to get together and name a Messiah. Okay. What are you talking about?
What are you, bro? That's what they're literally doing. They're over here. They brought in a bunch of red cows. They're gonna they sacrificed the red cows already. They're gonna sprinkle the ashes over there by the dome on the rock where the Alexa Moss is, in preparation to destroy the Alexa Moss or deconstruct it, and then of course build their temple in preparation for their Messiah. Will it work? Who knows? But they're going for it.
First of all, you just said 1 minute ago they're a secular state. Now you go, what if the secular state names a Messiah?
Okay,
does that make any sense
inside of Israel, do you agree with me that you have the Temple Institute and you have many Jewish organizations that are indeed willing and support the naming of a new Messiah?
There are messianic communities, apocalyptic Jewish messianic communities that believe that the rebuilding of the temple is a prelude to the end times. So what?
And no, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if it is the case that if these right-wing elements inside of,
at least he admit that they're real.
Israel, this would be more the right that is doing this than the left-wing elements which are there, which are more secular. If they get together and they do name an Antichrist, or I'm sorry, a Messiah, would that Messiah necessarily be Antichrist? Not the Antichrist, but antithetical to Christ because it's a false Messiah.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Then we have established that right now, by the way, do you know how big this movement is in Israel? Could you point, for instance, to England and say 30% of the population wants to name a new Messiah? No. And by the way, hang on, I just want to point something else out.
And guys, let's go to this CBS segment, right? So CBS Morning did a whole segment on this. Get ready, it's about to sound crazy.
Now entering its 6th month. The Israeli operation to root out Hamas terrorists there has resulted in the deaths of 30,000 Palestinians and 242 Israeli soldiers. The war started after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, killing almost 1,200 people and taking nearly 230 hostage, some still in captivity. Despite the deadly outcome across the region, one trigger for the Hamas rampage has been widely overlooked. Chris Livesay has the story from Jerusalem.
The infamous October 7 massacre that sparked a war. But one confounding yet eye-opening motive has escaped the headlines. In a recent speech, a Hamas spokesman blamed the Jews for bringing red cows to the Holy Land. The cows he's talking about at a secure, undisclosed location are these, red heifers, to be precise. Some Jews and Christians believe they're the key to rebuilding the historic Jewish temple in Jerusalem.
Yeah, and they got to pretty much sacrifice a perfect red heifer. Not a single hair must be discolored. It got to be a perfect red heifer. And then the sacrifice got to be done by somebody that they've kept up in some type of tower or skyscraper somewhere. And he must have been kept away from death. So he must have never have seen death in his life. No animal, not his mom, not his dad, nobody, no death at all. He just kept away from it. And they get this person to do the sacrifice of the red heifer.
And to beckoning the Messiah. To understand, you have to go back nearly 2,000 years when the ancient Romans destroyed the last temple in the city. To rebuild it, these believers point to the Bible's book of Numbers. It commands the Israelites to sacrifice a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Only then can the temple rise again. Caring for them on an Israeli settlement in the West Bank is Yitzhak Mamo.
So we have here.
Yeah, it is real. In Israel.
When you talk about this, you say anti-Semitism. It's the opposite. I'm telling you right now, Jews are safer outside of Israel than inside of Israel. And you know that that's true. Can you explain to me how it's anti-Semitic for me to point out, using logic, what's obvious to everybody?
Okay, now explain what you mean. What do you mean when you say Jews are safer outside of Israel? How are they safer?
Yeah, right now, well, at least in every Western nation, there's not a single Western nation that I can look at that where Jews live and have lived for the last 40 years where they're not safer.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for adding that point, Tori. Yeah, these cows came from the U.S. Yes, they're in an undisclosed location in the U.S., a.k.a. we're helping these guys bring back the Antichrist. I mean, bro, we're tied in more than just financial and military ways. We're also tied into their eschatology as well.
Inside of those nations than they are right now inside of the state of Israel.
You mean because there's a war going on?
Well, not just because there's a war going on, but because there's been a continuation of attacks of terror. In other words, from my view, and while I think this is irrelevant to the debate, I'll bite on it. From my view, it seems to me that Israel has not fulfilled its promise of safety for the Jewish people. It has not done so. And right now, you have more Jews who live outside of Israel than inside of Israel, and they're a lot safer than the Jews who live inside of Israel. Right. They are not fulfilling the promise of protecting their people group at all. In fact, they're relying on us to do it for them.
Facts.
Well, it's a pretty astounding claim when Jews not only have, but to this day are, moving to Israel from all parts of the world, willing to endure the risks and dangers that they face.
Because the Israeli government is giving them Palestinian land in the West Bank, and they're helping them ethnically cleanse the West Bank, aka kick the Palestinians out. So they're doing it again, and they're inviting Jews from all over the world to be, well, settlers
in Israel. And here you are from the kind of comfort of Dallas lecturing Israel on whether it's doing an adequate job protecting the Jews who are voluntarily choosing to come there. There are American Jews who have moved to Israel.
What does that have to do with
and
anything?
There is more danger for them. The reason that there's more danger.
Yes, there is more danger for them.
And the reason for that is that Israel is surrounded by Islamic fanatics.
No shit.
Yes, right. Okay.
So in this really dangerous country surrounded by Islamic fanatics, are they less safe or more safe there than in Western nations, Dinesh?
And are you
answer the question I asked like I've been answering yours. Dinesh, is it the case that these people who are in this desert completely surrounded by Islamic lunatics less safe there than they are in Western nations? Yes or no?
Yeah, they are more safe in Western nations with fewer Islamic fanatics.
Why do I have to beat these things out of you when you just agree with me?
Because you are pursuing a tactic of pretending like you're making a point when there is actually no point to be made. If a country based on a common identity in their own ancestral homeland it's like saying, I have a ranch. Yeah. I'm surrounded by outlaws who want to burn down my ranch, rape my wife, kill my kids, and you.
Yeah, but let's say that the ranch that you live on you stole it from those people, you forced them out, you killed some of their family members, and now they're ganging up on you to take it back. Don't you think you kind of brought this upon yourself through your own actions?
You go, well, why don't you then give up your homeland, give up your ranch? You're obviously safer if you move somewhere else. And I'm like, no, this actually is my homeland. I have every right to be here. And all I want is the right to fight back against these monsters who also hate you and declare you, America, to be their great Satan. I'm their little Satan.
Yeah,
and you're pretending like you're doing us a massive favor.
You're giving me or describing all sorts of positions to me that I haven't given, which is hilarious. For one thing, let's use your ranch example.
I mean, one of the reasons why they hate us is because we support you guys. So, I mean, yeah, thanks for bringing the hatred of the Middle East on us. Appreciate that, Israel.
Okay. You're absolutely 100,000% correct. I have outlaws. They're all around my little ranch, right? It's my ranch. I got the deed. I'm fighting for that shit. Do I have a right to go over to my neighbor and demand that he help?
No.
No, wait, what?
Hold on.
Wait, what? Well, did you say no?
I said.
Yo, Daniel, bro, long time no see, man. Hopefully you're staying safe out there, bro.
I said by itself, no. If your ranch
itself, no.
Yeah, if your ranch was encircled and your neighbor's ranch was not imperiled at all, and if your neighbor had nothing to do with it, then you're right. You would be appealing on the basis of like mercy or common heritage. You would be in Churchill's position because the Nazis had not attacked America. America faced no immediate danger from Hitler. and Churchill basically was reduced to begging.
I mean,
but the United States,
be real with you, there's low-key a good argument that we shouldn't have got involved because, you know, all the people that we lost. But I mean, you know, people do kind of hash that out with the, well, you know, we did become a world superpower. Yeah, but at the cost of hundreds of thousands of American lives and millions of others. But I mean, okay, if you consider that a good trade-off, that's you.
In on the Allied side. Why? Because we have historical, moral.
Hey, shout out to my man Daniel Welch for dropping the 10. He ain't had too much to say. He just wanted to show some support. I appreciate you, big dog. Raise a blade. Oh yeah, guys, you have any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements you want to add in on the show? Make sure to super chat it in. I'd be happy to read it out loud and engage with it. But once again, shout out to my man Daniel, bro. Long time no see. Hey, glad to see you pop up, honestly.
Philosophical, even spiritual continuities with Europe, and we came to the